Still sitting in a truck seat that's older than your favorite pair of work boots? Your back has been filing complaints for years. If your seat is worn out, sagging, or just plain uncomfortable, it's time for an upgrade. Head on over to seatspecialist.com. Check out their selection of quality replacement seats built to keep you comfortable mile after mile. And don't forget to use promo code TR10 4U to save 10% on your order. Seatspecialist.com, because a better ride starts with a better seat.
Welcome back to another episode of That's Delivered, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of trucking, logistics, and everything in between. I'm your host, Ray, and today we have a special guest joining us today. We're thrilled to have Chuck. He's a dedicated CACH steward for UPS feeder department. Chuck has been driving force for the industry, and his experience and insights are invaluable. And CACH stands for Chicago Area Consolidation Hub. So this is a huge facility. And in this episode, we're exploring Chuck's journey into the trucking world, his advice for new and experienced drivers alike, and his vital role the union plays in the trucking industry. We also dive into his day-to-day duties as a steward, satisfaction he finds in helping his colleagues, whether you're a driver, a logistics professional, or simply interested in the behind-the-scenes workings of the trucking industry. This episode is packed with valuable insights and inspiration. So buckle up and get ready and engage in the conversation with Chuck.
How you doing, brother?
Oh, man. I
Yeah,
think
how
it's
you
fun.
been?
I've been pretty good, yeah. I've been busy with this and also busy with some family time. So, I'm happy right now. I had a
Good.
good weekend. Can't complain. Went to a Twins game. I don't know. It wasn't too good for Chicago.
Yeah.
White
Well,
Sox.
the White Sox, it hasn't been good for a while.
Yeah.
I
So we
don't know what they
capitalized
did.
off of that.
I don't know what they did today. I'm hoping they're still. I'm a big Cub fan, so I'm hoping they're still on the losing streak. We can help them extend it. Friday, Saturday on this cross city classic here.
Wow. That's pretty cool. You guys got two, man. We only got one.
Right. I love. I think I told you this the last time we talked that I'm a huge baseball fan, but a lot of my family's from Minnesota.
Uh-oh.
I've only ever owned two jerseys that weren't Chicago Cub jerseys, and
Wow.
one was Frank Thomas from the '90s Sox. He was bad man, and the other one, a Chicagoan, but played for your Twins, Kirby Puckett. Love Kirby Puckett.
Yeah. Go to
Love
Kirby.
Kirby Puckett. He was first game I ever went to. I haven't been to Target Field, but as a kid, in '91, I went. My uncle took me to the old Dome Stadium there, and that was the year the Twins ended up winning the World Series that year.
Wow.
And it was Twins walked it off in like the 9th inning or 10th inning. Kent Herbeck walked it off, and they won the game, and you could hear that building shaking. It was one of the coolest things that still to this day that I've ever seen. But
wow.
That was my first Twins game. Twins Orioles. I got to see Puckett and Kent Herbeck, and Knobloch was still playing for the Twins then before he went to the Yankees. When he could still throw to first base from second base.
Wow.
And then the Orioles had, Ripken was playing for him. There was a couple of really, really good teams.
Man,
it was
that's
It
cool.
was a fun game.
Yeah. How nice. Yeah, man. Nothing like a good baseball game. I love it.
Yeah. I got a soft spot for the Twins. I never felt that way about the Vikings, but that's because I'm a Bear fan. So, different feeling there.
Yeah, it
different
is.
feeling there, but I do like the Twins. I do have a soft spot for the Twins.
That's cool, man. Thank you. Yeah, I like the Cubs too, man. When they won, I was like, wow, that was just a monumental day to see the Cubs win again, man. So,
it was. I was hoping that would be one of several.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Maybe we'll get back there soon.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hope so.
They got time.
Yep.
Yeah, man, I'm glad to have you on the show. I even got to hear a little bit of background about the baseball. That's pretty slick. We get to know you a little better, and that's a lot of the purpose of being on the podcast is to get to know the individuals, so other people can understand that it's a people behind this industry and what they do. That's a lot of the reason why I started this podcast, so to get that word out there about the individuals that are actually in the industry, making the moves, making things happen. So you play a critical role at CACH as a steward for the UPS feeder department. Man, that is a huge facility. What can you tell people about that? They've never been there.
Yeah. So Catch is the largest ground operation in the world. I guess it's 2 or 3 more square feet than some place in somewhere overseas is almost as big as us, but not quite. And so I'm part of Local 710, which is all feeder. We have no package car at Catch at all. It's all feeder drivers and inside workers. The inside workers and the city feeder department, the shuttles in town are all Local 705 out of Chicago. A lot of Teamsters may know that local is led by Juan Campos, which was, we just had the huge here, I guess it's been a couple of years ago now, O'Brien Zuckerman, running and taking the international, and Juan Campos was part of that slate and as a VP with the international now. So that's, he has a hand at Catch as well on one side of the building. Then my side of the building is basically sleepers and feeders. And our board, it fluctuates, but we're around 1,150 drivers right now at Catch. Have around 300 ground bids and around 300 sleeper bids. That's fluctuated here with with volume levels. I think last year at our height, we had 349 sleeper runs. We're closer to 300 right now. And, but hopefully we'll see with the USPS contract that UPS has got. And I think we're starting to see customers that may have left in fear of a work stoppage. They always eventually kind of filter back into the system, and I think we'll hopefully see jobs kind of increase again.
Yeah, that is hopeful. A lot of people are thinking that even the trucking industry in itself is going to pick up. So after the political year, I think trucking in its whole has a little bit of a standstill in that year. And so hopefully, with the contract and coming out of the political year, hopefully that will make a change, and we will see that increase in volume too for consumers as well. I mean, that has a big.
Well, I think it's one of those things that is a fallout of COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where when you look, a lot of people want to focus on the inflation and things like that. Look, we can have conversations about inflation and whether or not that's real. How much of that is actually inflation and how much of that is just corporate uptick in pricing and gouging, and how much of it directly goes to profit margins. But a lot of the work numbers, the unemployment numbers, the income numbers, things like that we watch and we look at, regardless of who the president is, right? A lot of those numbers are trending up. And then we have kind of a volume. The volume's kind of down, trucking across, whether you're talking freight or small pack or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of that has to do with people's choices. I mean, when you have a shutdown like that, that's kind of an eye-opening experience for a lot of people. and I think they're more selective of what they're spending their money on and what they're spending their time. What they're doing with their money and whether they're saving it, if they're prepared for something like that to happen again. And I think it just reflects in not only our industry but every other industry.
Wow. Yeah, that's a huge picture, and you guys get to see it right there firsthand, especially being the largest in the world. I mean, that's a lot of movement of logistics right there at that facility. I mean, you guys are connected with the train, the rail system.
Yeah, we have a rail yard that's actually connected uh, to our facility. It's got an entrance just for UPS, and I don't know. I think it's 4 rails, about 2 miles long, 3 miles long, something like that. I mean, it's a pretty good size rail. Anybody who's ever driven by it, driven by the facility, it's a huge facility. Moves a lot of packages through. CACH had set I think this last peak season, I think they set a record. It was somewhere around 4 million packages sorted in a day. Some ungodly number that they sorted. Yeah, I mean, CACH is a well-oiled machine when it's running right, it's staffed right. It's
Wow.
it's a behemoth in the system for sure.
Wow. Man, so enough about CACH. We want to get to know Chuck. Man, can you tell us about your journey into the trucking industry? What inspired you to become a driver?
I don't know that I was inspired to be a driver, if we're being honest. I was a married man with children working in the construction field, and like a lot of people in that field, starting in late 06 into 07, and it was by the time everybody else felt the housing collapse in 08, anybody who was in the industry had been feeling it for about a year. And work was sparse, and I was working with my people that I knew in my life, and I had a wife and kids to support, and I needed to get back on my feet as soon as I could, and make decent money. It wasn't a situation where I could go back to school for 4 years and try to figure it out. And as a lot of people in the industry know, look, you can go to CDL school, and in 4 weeks, you can have a license and you can be working, or you can do night school for 8 weeks, depending on your state.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I was lucky enough, President Obama at the time did the WIA program, the Worker Empowerment Act, and I was able to qualify to get retrained and kind of reestablish myself in the workforce. And so I was thankful for that opportunity to be able to get to go to school, do my 4 weeks, and I had a job. I don't know, I had several offers within, I think most guys that I've talked to that go to CDL school, there's recruiters that come in, and I had multiple offers for work before I even had my CDL. And
Mm-hmm.
so my goal was always, I knew that there's some non-union companies out there that you can make decent money, but I knew having gone through what I'd gone through in construction, that I wanted that pension. I wanted health care. I wanted I wanted something for putting my time in. And so I knew that I may not be able to get that opportunity right away. That a union company wasn't necessarily going to hire me right out of CDL school at the time. That was the goal. So I worked, started out in flatbed, and I didn't make any money doing that, but the one thing I appreciated about flatbed was you're talking about load securement, and there was a big focus on safety in that industry because you don't want something coming off of that flatbed. And so while I wasn't in that industry for a long time, because it was a lot of hours sitting at a steel mill waiting for them to pour the steel that you were scheduled to pick up, but you weren't getting paid for it. There was a lot of hardships as far as trying to make any money doing it. But the driving lessons, the safety, that's something that I still use today at UPS. So
yeah,
right, yeah. So it's I started there, then I went to a regional family-owned company out of my hometown, running food products, 57-foot reefer, and I ran regionally, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, the Dakotas. Didn't really do East Coast, West Coast, didn't go south. And from there, I moved into LTL first with a non-union LTL company, and then eventually with ABF. And I was with ABF for 8+ years. First as a casual, and then as a full-time seniority board member. And during COVID, I decided that it was time to make that jump to UPS. It was time to go, and so I've been up here nearly 4 years now with UPS.
Man, you made the same jump at the same time a lot of people did. Yeah, I mean that's ABF gives you a little taste of the union, and how did that kind of help you where you're at now?
Well, I always tell people if I had a union Facebook account, my hometown would be local 26 in Champaign, Illinois, and I'd be living in 710. I kind of got raised in that local, and it was I had people that the beauty about unionism when it works right is that you're part of a community. And people lift you up, and they educate you, and they encourage you, and quite frankly, the union changed my life in a lot of ways, not just in the amount of money I could make and the health coverage that I could provide for my family, but in the friendships that I have and I hold and I will for so long, of people who genuinely cared about me and my family, and helping me reach whatever financial goals or union goals that I wanted to meet. And I think that's one of the things that gets overlooked. People think union, and they think they think negotiating and enforcing a contract, and that's certainly part of it. But unions that work really well are unions that are made up of people that care about other people, and that create communities within their union, and they work together and stand together. And that's a really, really powerful thing if you could create it at your workplace.
Absolutely. I think we talked before we got to go on this, and that was one thing that stuck in my mind about you, is that you want to create that community and keep that going. I mean, that kind of leads into the next segment about your role as a union steward. I mean, what a huge company to be a part of, and also right there at CACH as a steward. I mean, man, that seems to be overwhelming. What motivated you to become a union steward, and how great is it that you started in this role?
Well, I had been, I'd been a union steward for most of my tenure, outside of about 6 months at ABF. I was notified by the union that I had been appointed as steward the first time I was ever made a steward at ABF, and I had about 6 months of seniority there. And then eventually, the next election won an election, and I was a steward there until the day I left. And I'd worked really hard at doing that. And it was I was kind of looking forward to coming to UPS and just being a guy, just being a rank and file and getting to know people and just do my job and not have to worry about anything. And that didn't last very long. And I was there's a lot, as you know, being at UPS. There's with the expansion, especially at sleeper teams. There's a lot of people, longtime union people who are not very senior on boards, but they're running sleeper teams, and they came from ABF or now especially yellow since YRC went under. We've got an influx of a lot of yellow, former yellow drivers that are with us, and the atmosphere in freight as it revolves around unionism is much different. When you walk on an ABF dock, it's union. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but there's something in the air where you're walking into a union facility. It doesn't take long. There's a different aura at UPS. UPS is union, but they've, for over 100 years, they've really focused on the shield and the company, and it's almost they really push you about being prideful of and not that I'm not prideful of the company, but you can sometimes lose track of the things that are afforded to you under a contract when you only focus on how great the company is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so there's kind of a different aura at UPS when it comes to unionism. In freight, a lot of people say, "Hey, I'm a Teamster that happens to work at ABF or whatever company."
Right.
At UPS, "Hey, I work for UPS and I happen to be a Teamster." It's just a different mentality. So that didn't sit well with a lot of car haul guys and a lot of freight guys, and they saw their contract as something that was guaranteed to them by the company, and in many ways the company was falling short in their obligations, and and so I was asked and poked and prodded and finally convinced that, oh, okay, fine, I'll run. And I had been here I think I had 13 months of seniority at UPS when I was elected at CACH a little over 2 years ago. So we're April next year will be the end of our 3-year term, and I assume we'll have another election. But yeah, it poses, coming from a small barn at ABF where I had 25, 26 guys on a board to go into 1,150 people, and had to develop note-taking skills a lot better than, when you're talking to 25 guys that you see every day. I didn't have to take a whole lot of notes to ABF. I absolutely have to do it here. I have to keep track and make sure I can follow up with members.
How many stewards are there? I mean,
we have eight
okay.
stewards. Yeah, wow. We have 8 stewards.
And then there's committee members with that too?
We just have stewards, and then we have, the only committees we have at CACH is like safety committee, CHSB. But yeah, the stewards we have 2 business agents, that the one that handles Brown, one that handles sleeper at CACH, and then we have 8 stewards.
So with being that many stewards, is there a hierarchy with that, or they're all kind of on the same role?
No, they don't have. So, like a lot of places when I was at ABF, they had chief stewards and alternate stewards and things like that. It's just everybody's a steward here. So there's no, there's nobody necessarily that's in charge of all the stewards. Nice. We just kind of try to work together and protect the membership and advise the membership and make sure that we're giving them the best information that we can and upholding their rights under the contract.
Okay. Nice. Thanks for giving that eye opener. And also too, a lot of people that don't work at a union facility, they don't have that same optics about what a steward is, because a lot of times they think, you're giving your money to the union and they don't know what the value is. Can you tell them a little more about the value of being a part of a union?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, I worked, the trucking industry. What a lot of people outside of the trucking industry don't know is, like your state, a lot of your state laws, overtime laws and things like that, they don't apply to trucking, right? So we're federally governed. The trucking industry is federally governed, and most of your non-union trucking companies, they don't pay overtime. They don't pay wait time. They don't pay, like when I was in flatbed, if your truck broke down, you got $75 a day on breakdown pay. Now it might be more now. At the time, that's what it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't get paid for the day that you broke down, and you didn't get paid for the day that you left, right? Even if that was 23 hours of the day, you got. I'd have weeks where the truck was broke down, and I'd make $300, and all that meant to me was I had to stay away from home for another week to make money. And that's it's not a good way to live life. And there's a lot of guys out there non-union that live that life and don't make a lot of money. And I would attribute that to not having a voice in your workplace. What a union really does is gives you a voice in your workplace. It gives you an ability to collectively bargain with a unit of people doing a job, to bargain the conditions at your workplace, your pay, your benefits, what you're getting paid if you're throwing if you're on flatbed and you're throwing tarp. The company I worked for paid you $50 to tarp a load, and they were charging the company $500. It's like I'm doing all the work and they're making $450. Well, under a union contract, maybe you make 400 instead of 50. All of that stuff is collectively bargained. As a steward, your steward is what we call a rank and file member. I'm a worker just like anybody else. I'm out driving a truck, doing a bidded job just like you are. And I'm kind of the first defense for you against the company, where hey, the company did X, Y, and Z. Ray calls me and says, hey, I showed up to work and they told me they had a contractor run my run. What are we going to do? Right. And then Ray and I are going to sit down and talk about whether or not that the use of that contract is a violation to Ray's rights under the contract, which, by the way, it would be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he would get paid for that. He would get paid for that run, even though he's not doing that run. If you're on call boards, they got to call by seniority. And so what I tell people is I've worked for non-union companies. I've seen guys that there's a company I worked for out of Wisconsin, and they had a line haul guy, one of the nicest guys you'd ever meet, worked for him for like 10 years, was on his way back to the terminal, a terminal up in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Drunk driver came up and they had it all on video. Guy took a left turn, ran right into the truck, right? They pulled his metrics up on his truck and he was going 72 and a 70, so they terminated him after 10 years of service. And he had no rights to go through a grievance process or to protect. That 10 years that he had dedicated to that company meant absolutely nothing, and he was forced to go look somewhere else and to start all over and to start a new pay progression or start a new vacation, start all over. And with the union, your time matters. The time that you put forward, you're getting something for it. You're getting a pension in a lot of cases. Not every union contract, but for us, we're getting a pension contribution, and we're getting our health care, and we have guarantees within our contract. They can cut my sleeper run today. I can go out and I could work, I can work 30 hours and they cut half my run because there's a hurricane coming through Florida. They just say, we're not going to send you. They send me back to Chicago and I work 2 days and I get a 40-hour guarantee. That's because I am part of a union. That's because it's collectively bargained. And, there's been a lot of discussion, even the last 10 years, Ray, about, the demand for truck drivers and how are we going to get people to go. Over the 10 years, when people are talking about there's a lack of truck drivers, right? We're X amount of hundreds of thousands of truck drivers short. And the reason for that, you can tie directly to the unionization of this industry. And you can look at the pay. You can look at the pay and the benefits. And, 1980, 1984, you could get a run-of-the-mill trucking job with, not even a union company. And you would be middle to upper middle class. You could earn that kind of a living. Now, you can get a job with some run-of-the-mill, name any one of these big, I always call them box store. They're like the Walmarts of the trucking industry.
Mm-hmm.
They don't pay anything, right? Their benefits suck. You're asking people in a lot of cases for a lot of these over-the-road jobs to be gone from their families weeks at a time, multiple weeks at a time, and they're making what they could make at the McDonald's down the street. So what's the motivation for people to come into this industry if they we're primarily doing jobs because we want to make money. And if they want to really get quality people that take the job seriously, bottom line is you got to pay people and you got to provide them with good health care and a retirement. And that's where the industry needs to go to build back the industry.
Yeah. Compensating that time. That's huge. Yeah.
It's not an easy. It's not an easy job. It's not an easy job. Even with us, with UPS, I'd say, and you can correct me at your facility. I would say 90% of our runs, our bid runs, work overnight. Right?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Most of these men and women, they're not at home in bed with their significant other. They're out on the road overnight because they're moving packages. A lot of freight's the same way. LTL, you get some, on the freight side, you get some day work, but they're not 9 to 5s. It's not, these are not bankers hours in the trucking industry. You work until it's done and you show up at 7 o'clock in the morning. And sometimes it's, 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night, before you get done. It's not an easy job to do. And, I think a lot of people look at the industry and say, if I'm going to dedicate that kind of time and I'm going to be away from my, it takes me away from the things that I enjoy with my family and the things that I want to do because I'm going to be out on the road. What's that time worth? And what do I need to be paid for? And I think that's what the industry has to face.
Yeah, it's huge. Especially if you have kids.
Yeah.
Providing health care for them is huge, but also the fact that you're trading your time away from your family to do something that they don't even know what you're doing. And so you that footprint that you can have in that child's life is getting smaller. So, yeah.
I was LTL. I used to walk the docks with all of the non-union guys, the XPO guys, the Old Dominion guys. And a lot of guys have blinders on and they go, I make $2 more an hour than you. Okay. Yeah. But what are you paying for your health coverage? You're paying $150, $200 a week sometimes for coverage that's not even as good as mine, and nothing comes out of my check. You're not getting overtime, right? You don't have a pension. The only money that's going into retirement is going into a 401k. and you can't afford to put what you need to put in there, right? Because you got to pay for this other stuff. Like, especially for those young people out there, I've got a few guys at our barn that are, they're in their early to late 20s. And it's like, guys, I don't care what happens. Do not leave this job. Do not leave this job, because you may not be thinking about, you're healthy, you're in your 20s, you're not having health problems, you're not thinking about, health coverage for kids because you don't have any yet. But all that life experience is coming, and the benefits that you have at a union shop are unmatched out there. I mean, I'm not going to say there aren't places out there non-union that pay a decent wage, but when you put the whole package together, UPS alone, I don't think people understand that the benefit package alone is about $1,200. Before you and I pull a single load, the company's investing $1,200 a week in us. A week, not a month, a week. Yeah. In our pension payment and our health coverage. Okay. You can't go to any non-union company where there's that kind of an investment in their people. And the only reason UPS doesn't do it because they love us and they want to take care of us. They do it because we demand it through collective bargaining. That's the only reason we have it.
Wow. Man, that's huge. I mean, people will talk bad about unions when they're not in them, but when they're in them and they can see the benefits that they do carry and that they do take care of for their members. I know there's some things that are like splinters in their fingers that, hey, I get that there's some irritating things, but on the flip side, what they get in return is monumental in the long run, especially for a family. Those young
Absolutely.
ones, they get invested in. I think even some just got scholarships. There's a lot of other give backs that the union does for them too. So,
well, and look, I mean, unions aren't perfect, right? We've
yeah,
had our history of corruption. Yeah, you can go
yeah,
back and yeah, there's been movies, and hey, we still don't know where Hoff is at, right? I mean,
yeah,
there's there's been corruption in unions, just like there's been corruption in any other organizations, whether you're talking about the government or anywhere else, right? But
yeah,
the bottom line is, and that's kind of what my focus has been. I know I included you. Yeah, we do some educational stuff and try to build community at CACH, and we host calls. And I know I invited you a few weeks ago,
yeah,
where you
yeah.
sat in and kind of listened to what we were doing and
Oh,
giving you ideas to do, hopefully the same thing at your place and maybe spread that idea around. Because what gets rid of corruption within unions is a membership that's engaged, just like it does in your local or your state elections. Um, it's about people understanding what's going on and who's doing what and whether or not they're doing their job,
yeah.
and then voting not based on the guy you like to have a barbecue with, drink beer with, but with the person who's going to do the job that you want them to do.
Say that one more time for our listeners. You said a membership that is engaged. Yeah.
Engaged, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you're, maybe there's some union members who are listening now who are under a collective bargaining agreement, maybe even at UPS, but they don't know what a steward's supposed to do, right? So
Right.
how do they vote for a steward if they don't know what a steward's job is? How do you vote for a business agent if you don't know what a business agent's job is? Or, all the way up. I mean, it doesn't have to be Steward. It can go all the way up to the general president of the IBT, Sean O'Brien. Like, if you guys don't understand how your union government works and what their jobs are and what they're supposed to be held accountable for, how do you vote effectively, right?
What do
So I always tell people,
what's your message
get
on that one?
involved.
Yeah, you got a quick rundown that you could throw at them?
Well, I mean, I just basically, you know, basically a steward. I mean, a steward is there. Like I said, they're your first offense.
Uphold the
So
contract.
right, they're there to enforce the contract for you. So your steward should know what the contract is. They don't have to know it verbatim, right? but they got to do the research. They got to, put information requests into the company for, time cards or emails or whatever it is that they need to put forth the best case for you to prove your pay claim, or prove that the discipline that the company has taken towards you, shouldn't have happened. Whatever your case happens to be, right? It's the steward's job to kind of go through the contract, communicate with you, get the evidence together, get those initial conversations and reports done. They're going to be the ones that meet with you and the company. They're going to write a steward report. They're going to provide that to a business agent. It's the business agents who go to the local hearing and the panel hearing, right? They're the ones arguing your case using the evidence that the steward provided. Sometimes the steward can be there too, and they can certainly help argue the case, but ultimately it's a business agent's responsibility to argue those cases. That's their job. So, and then you've got the administrators in your, that can vary based on your bylaws. Like every local has bylaws, and I would encourage everybody.
What's bylaws,
right? Right. Bylaws is basically the governing paperwork within your local, right? It outlines what your president's president's responsibilities are within your local, your secretary treasurer, your recording secretary, your trustees, all of these people within your local. If you're in a union, you should know what those people's responsibilities are, and when you're interacting with those people, you should be asking them about how the job's doing and what they're seeing and what they're doing on a daily basis. It gives you insight on how your union's working. And it, look, you might have great union representatives that are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Great. You vote those people in, but the Teamster organization is designed to be a bottom-up organization, meaning Sean O'Brien doesn't come out and say, hey, this is what the Teamsters are going to do, right? His message comes from listening to the membership, right? The membership directs local unions, or is supposed to, right? What the members want is supposed to dictate to the leadership what direction the Teamsters are going. And any leadership, sure, you want people who want to uphold contracts and want to lift people up, but you also, in any really good leader, you want somebody who listens to their membership, who goes out and asks what the issues are. And then it's the membership through communication who directs that administration to say, hey, these are our issues and this is what we need you to take care of, right? And they take up those issues. And without an engaged, when you have apathy within your ranks where people aren't engaged, they don't get any direction from the membership, right? Because nobody's engaged. So really, really, we need to, we have work to do within all of our unions, whether you talk about the Teamsters or the UAW or your local teachers union. People have really busy lives. Sometimes it's hard to stay involved and get involved and know what's going on. But it's really vital that people that people engage themselves and understand what's going on and make their voice heard, because that's the point of the union. If you don't have a voice and you're in a union, that's a problem. You need to have a voice.
That's the thing. You're paying to have a voice. And then
absolutely,
you don't want to be involved. You want to put your head in the sand and say, so-and-so's got that, the steward's got that. Well, that's kind of not getting the full value of what you're paying,
Right.
And that's, right. I think that message, getting that out there, re-educating people that, yes, there's still work to do when it comes down to that contract. Oh, we didn't get what we wanted. Well, what did you do 4 years prior to that? Were you in?
Well, I mean, I'll give you an example. They're putting these, they're putting these cameras in all the UPS trucks, right? I've been pulled into conference calls with guys on Brown, and they're ready to go down and burn the hall down, right? Oh, we got to get these cameras out of here. We got to get these cameras out of here. It's like, guys, it's in the contract. It's in the contract. I read them the article, and they're all dumbfounded. Well, I'm on a call with 20 people. Nobody read the contract, right? They got a tentative agreement. All they saw was we're going to make X amount of money over the course of 5 years, right? They didn't read anything else. They just went, oh, that sounds good. Money looks good. And they didn't pay attention to the details. And then when the details came out, well, now they take issue with it. But they had an opportunity, to read the contract, and they didn't read the contract. You have to invest in your union. You can't go to your union after overwhelmingly ratifying a contract and then gripe about what's in it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't say, I don't want these cameras. Well, you voted for it. In our local, 70% of the people voted yes for the contract, but a large majority of them didn't know what was in the contract. They just they saw Sean O'Brien online saying it was historic, and they saw everybody's telling them it's a great deal, right? And they didn't read it. And look, I got no problem having conversations. You and I can sit down in a conversation about a tentative agreement, right? And I'm going to like some things that you don't like, and you're going to like, you're going to dislike some things that I like, whatever. But at least we're having a conversation about what's in there.
There you go.
You know what I mean? But voting for something just because, there's $7.50 worth of raises in here. At the end of this contract, we're going to make $1.12. Oh, this is awesome, right? And then when they put the cameras in there that they have every right to put in there contractually, you're ready to go down to the hall and burn it down. You voted for it, man.
They just want to listen to somebody tell them nice things. But what is it really that's, I know you're not going to get everything you want. A lot of people that invest it politically. However, are you just thinking about the person, or are you thinking about what actually is policies and things that are being in place? And people are like, oh, that's boring. Contract for UPS, that's boring. It all sounds fine.
Well, my ability to provide for my family isn't boring, and that's where I vote, whether it's in a union contract or it's it's politically. I don't get bogged down in social issues. Okay, a woman born with an XY chromosome boxing in the Olympics really doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect my life, right? And people can get bogged down in that, and then they can vote against their best interest based on a social issue, or they can actually look at the policies and what policies benefit them. But there's little glimpses in time there where we could have made choices, and we made other choices, so then we get stuck with the consequence. Yeah. And
that's you're right. I think that says a lot right there in that statement. You get stuck with the consequences.
Right.
So why do we, want to throw a fit? Like you said, burn the hall down.
And it's not a zero-sum game. It's not a zero-sum game all the time. You have to understand the environment around why that thing happens. Understand what was going on in that time frame.
Yeah. A lot of moving parts. What are these policies? What are these things that are being done to make a change? And who's there trying to fight for those changes is huge. Who would you, I guess, let people know how to take control of their income and their work environment? Who's the one that's best suited for it?
Well, I think having a network where you can have general conversations with rank and file members when the rank and file is educated is a good start. It's saying, hey, the company did this, or they called me and did this, and do you think that's right? And having a conversation and identifying whether or not, there's a lot of things, if you're educated as a member and your rights under the contract, a lot of times you're not even going to have to call a steward, right? Because you're going to sift it out yourself. You're going to sort it out yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would always encourage people, if you're in a union and you think that you've been grieved in some way, your first contact should be a steward. Forge a relationship with your steward. Talk to a steward often. Most places have multiple stewards. Find a person you connect with, that you communicate well with, and then use that person as your steward.
There you go. Yeah. And, I think about that. It's almost like making something that is on a book more audible, something you can communicate with, like that contract, even though it is there in writing. What is the best practices? What is the past practices, should I say, that have been practiced for years, and trying to understand that and how it correlates with the contract. Sometimes there is a gap. Sometimes it is a misunderstanding. Sometimes there is, maybe things are being done right. It's just that the member doesn't understand exactly how it's, like you said about the cameras. They didn't know
Right.
that.
Or what's the interpretation? What's the interpretation of a language, or of a contract language?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I mean, it's important to know all of that stuff. What was the spirit of an agreement? Meaning, it says this, but what did we negotiate within the contract, and why did we negotiate this language? What was the idea behind the language? Sometimes the language can be foggy, right? It can be a gray area. There's a lot of gray in a contract.
Yeah.
And that's where the grievance process sifts through that gray.
Yeah. So instead of complaining a lot about it, you put the work in actually understanding and actually working together. A lot of people think, hey, I'm upset, but does that really get anything accomplished? And I think that's where
Right.
educating individuals to get involved, not so like, hey, I got to put on that, or I got to get really unionized. It's more so just, you got to do the work. You got to put the work in. You got to
Right.
do the research for yourself.
Set your union book, set your collective bargaining agreement on the back of your toilet, and read an article at a time while you're sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah.
Get through it, read it. Um, Contracts are kind of tough to say. They're not storybooks. They're not easy to sift through and just read cover to cover. Most people are going to learn as situations come up. So what I always tell guys is, and I'm serious, put one in your bathroom. You spend a lot of time in there when you're home. Read an article here or there when you got nothing else going on. And then when something comes up, you're going to go, boy, I read something about that. Where was that? Right.
Yeah.
And
Or
you're
you
going
got
to go
trouble
find
sleeping,
it.
guess trouble
Right,
sleeping.
right, right, exactly. But you should read your contract. You should know what's in your contract.
And just, stop the emotional part. Try to engage
Right.
the logical part. And I think that's the message I really want to put out there, is not that, hey, I want you to go gung ho or do this huge union thing. That's not it. It's just know your rights,
Right.
know what's out there.
Contracts are two ways, right? As union members, we have rights in a contract. We also have responsibilities. And part of what we're trying to build is this idea that the Teamsters are supposed to be the cream of the crop, right? The way that we do our jobs, the quality of work that we provide to these employers. There's a reason they pay us what they pay us, because we take our work and our responsibility seriously, and as devout a unionist as I am, look, when I'm out here driving a truck, I'm not hitting anything. I'm getting these packages on time. I'm providing services to the customers because I take pride in what my work is. I'm going to do my job. I'm going to uphold my responsibility as under that contract, and every Teamster should want to do that. I look at contracts as no different than you or I shaking hands and looking each other in the eye and giving each other our word. I'm going to follow up on that word, and I'm going to do that. And Teamsters have to do that, but the company has to do it too. And so I often tell the company, look, I don't want to be in here arguing this, but all I'm asking you as the company to do is uphold the same threshold that you expect me to uphold under this contract. You expect me to uphold my responsibilities and my duties under this contract. Why shouldn't I expect you to do the same?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to, I don't know how much time you got, but I want to just kind of make sure that people know about you and the things that motivate you. I mean, that's huge that you're sharing that with us. Um, any personal habits or practices that contribute to your success as driving or being a steward? Any personal things you wanted to share?
Well, like I said, I think with unionism a lot, it's about camaraderie. It's about people taking each other under the wing. And I always encourage our members, like, hey, you're at the yard and you're getting in the truck, and there's a another driver that you see every night, but you don't know who he is. Like, go over, say hi, exchange phone numbers, get to know the people that you work with. Um, we can have conversations about different political views or different religious views or different, and they want the same things for their families that I want, right? They just they just see a different road to get there. Um, but we all want the same things, and we can all connect in our jobs and on our desires to provide for our families. There's a lot of ways for us to connect with one another, and so that's a instinctual human thing. We need human interaction. We need to connect with one another,
Yeah.
and we need to feel like we're a part of something.
Yeah.
And unionism is one of those things that, look, when you get involved, you help people. Um, you're there to support people when they need support. It's a very rewarding thing, even if you're not a steward. I always tell people, like, if you're a union member, everybody's a steward of their union. Everybody.
Mm.
We all have responsibilities to one another. And whether that's, you and I work at different hubs, we're from different locals, but you're my union brother, and I have a
Yeah.
responsibility to you. Um, and when I'm filing a grievance down here and I'm upholding, the primary goal of my grievance might be a pay claim, but secondarily, I'm upholding the contract and I'm upholding it for the people on my board, but I'm upholding it for you too.
Yeah.
I'm saying, hey, we negotiated this, and you need to rise to your responsibility of uphold your word that you gave us. And each and every person that files a grievance coast to coast is doing that for everybody else in the country. And we got to start seeing ourselves as a member of a community and not individual people working at a place. Because when we're individual and they can break us down by individuals, the company wins every time, and they take advantage. And some of that language within that contract doesn't get enforced, and, and some of those benefits that we fought hard for, you don't get because we're all out there running our own game
Yeah.
instead of coming together. When we're together in any group, either an established union or maybe there's a group of people out there that are thinking about joining a union or talking. We got uh, we're working with the local one folks for Amazon. Um, like anybody at Amazon out there, look, you're running a Sprinter van at $18 an hour, and you think you're doing well. Look, you're getting paid half what you should be, and we know because we know what our car guys are making, right, doing the same job.
Yeah.
Um, you ought to be making $40 an hour running that package car, not 18.
So why why
And
why is it so hard for people to come together? What's your take on that?
well, I think it's a societal thing, right? I mean, um, there was a time you can go back in history within the U.S. where we viewed ourselves more communal. Um, but everything's individual. That there's been a lie perpetuated my entire lifetime. I know, where the government, especially in corporations, have done a really good job of pitting, um, upper middle class and working middle class against working poor, and and saying, we've all heard we've all heard the jokes about, I got to go to work for all the people who won't work today, things like that. Yeah, and we laugh about it. People make jokes about it, but it just normalizes that idea that the reason we struggle from a week to week or we're living paycheck to paycheck is because somebody who's not willing to go to work. And that's just not based in fact. I mean, in reality, even our welfare systems, you're not propping up people, right? I think the last article I read, somewhere around 75% of people on food stamps work full time. They work for places like Amazon and they work for places like Walmart. And their pay is designed to ensure, right? I'm gonna work them just under full time so they can't get health coverage. And then I'm gonna pass that cost onto the taxpayers. I'm gonna pay them just enough that they can get food stamps, right? And you're not subsidizing those people. You're subsidizing the profits of Walmart. You're allowing places like Walmart to set up a workforce that they can take advantage of, instead of taking from their profits, right? And paying people appropriately for the services and the goods and the profits that they produce. One of my favorite things out there is, like, we can all agree, if I take all of your labor and I pay you nothing, what is that?
Yeah.
It's slavery, right?
Slavery, yeah.
Okay. So the question is, at what percentage of payment for your labor is it not slavery? 10%, 20%? Because in a capitalist system, right, in order for a capitalist system to work, you have to work for less than you're worth. Okay, in a capitalist system, you cannot make what you're worth, because then it doesn't leave anything for the corporation. If you got everything that you produced, there would be nothing left for the company, right? So the whole system is built on, it's going to be made off of your back. But the question is, how much does that company deserve to get off the fruits of your labor? And how much, more importantly, do you deserve?
That's the continuing argument back and forth, and the misunderstandings, and yeah, they just never end. It just keeps going. Be nice if it could come to some conclusion, but
Well, I think like anything else, it's education. Like, actually think about it critically and say, like I've heard since I was a kid, McDonald's is a starting job. You want to do better, go do something else, right? But nobody talks about the CEO making $25 million a year. Doesn't make one hamburger, doesn't produce one unit of profit, right? Just makes decisions as to how to cut costs here and how to do this or how to do that. But they don't actually service anything to the company. All of those millions of dollars of profits that are paid to the CEO and all the executives at the top of those corporations is produced by the person at the drive-through that's taking your money and making your burger. And yet, perceptually, we think that, there's a lot of people who think that those people who work at McDonald's are beneath them, even though they're producing a huge profit for their corporation. No different than what you or I are doing. We just happen to be, maybe we're doing a more skilled trade. And I'm not saying we should be making the same amount as what a burger flipper's making, right? But if you're a movie director and you want a really hit movie, there's a reason you hire a guy like Tom Cruise or Tom Hanks, Meryl Streep, right? There's a difference between one of those actors and somebody off the street. There's a reason that they produce the revenues that they produce, right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't, I don't hate people in movies that make $40 million to make a movie, because they're going to bring in billions of dollars of revenue, and that's going to go on for years and years and years and years. They deserve to collectively bargain, right? Or a musician who puts out their form of art, like they should get their revenues from that, right? Because it's something that they're producing. It's their piece.
Yeah,
But I also think
Prince was
that
a huge advocate for that. Prince, he made it.
absolutely,
Yeah, hey man, what's going
absolutely,
on here? Yeah,
absolutely, because the music industry by and large was slave industry. People didn't own their masters. They didn't own their music. They were producing, and at the end, the industry just chewed them up and spit them out. And when their artistry was done, they just left. And they're flipping burgers at McDonald's. People yelling at them to do better. But yeah, Prince was a big proponent of owning your masters and owning your art. And
oh, yeah, owning.
but I think people should look at art, or should look at people should look at their work that way too. When you go clock in at a business, there's a reason they're paying you for your time, because you are producing a profit.
So do you think being in the union is somewhat of an ownership type thing, a buy-in?
Well, I think it allows you to answer that question about what percentage is not slavery, right? It gives you a voice in saying, I know what the revenues are. When you sit down and these companies, they hide stuff, like, let's be honest, but we see their books. We know what they're making, right? And then we get to determine, we know what's in the back of these trailers. We know how much money we're pulling from one place to the other. And sure, it's not just us, right? We're just a portion of, we're not the loaders. We're not, there's a lot of different people who move that package from one place to the other. But these trailers are full of revenue. You're hauling gold every time you not actual gold. Nobody start looting UPS trailer. I mean, revenue wise, there's a lot of revenue in every trailer, whether you're talking about a UPS trailer, or you're talking about, any other company running down the road. There's revenues that you're producing for the company.
Yeah, all trucks have a huge amount of responsibility on the back of those trucks.
And as well as we do, right? Once you get to top scale and all, I mean, we've all heard the jokes because the news is telling us, everybody thinks we're millionaires.
Okay, yeah. What's your take on that one?
Yeah, I mean, every time I walk into a truck stop, everybody pile your stuff up. The UPS guys here, everybody thinks we're making. It's like, no, there's still progression. There's some of us that don't make top scale. We're $50 an hour is 4 years from now. It's not now. Okay, I'm not saying top scale guys don't make good money.
Yeah, that TikTok and those, the air condition thing, that was huge.
Well, CNN just had a report a month ago that UPS has not purchased one vehicle with air conditioning in it yet. A year into the contract.
Yeah, I mean, is that bashing or is that just facts? People say, "Oh, you don't bash the company." I'm like, that's not bashing. It's just
I mean, if telling the truth is bashing, I guess, they shouldn't have a dishonesty policy in their contract.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to get fired by saying that by saying you did order a bunch of stuff. That would be bad. I mean, it says that in our contract. You guys are really big on being truthful.
Yeah, honesty is huge.
Honesty is huge. I mean, for us, right? I mean, it doesn't really apply the other way, but for us, it's a big deal. Big deal.
Huge deal. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think that was pretty clever. The short videos that people watch and then they draw conclusions. Yeah. I mean,
some of the TikToks were hilarious. The women following all the package car guys. Hey, how you doing?
It's not like that.
No. It's
and then we're never home.
Right.
Wow.
Well, hey, in some cases that might make us more intriguing, right? Hey, just throw that money in there. We'll see you when you see it.
Oh man, goodness.
I always tell people my best day is Friday. My wife thinks I'm the most attractive on Friday. It's kind of downhill from then, By Thursday, I'm not nearly as attractive, but Friday, I'm always looking good.
You're the man.
I'm always looking good on Friday.
Yeah, that's my time to shine.
Friday, I do no wrong on a Friday, brother.
Oh man. So what message would we kind of end on that you would like to convey to the drivers, kind of put out there a message that maybe they can come together on? I know there's so many things that are divisive in the world. I mean, it just, are we really want to be more part of the divisive situation, or do we want to be more about the unity? Um, I mean, not coming together to do bad, coming together to do good. I mean, what,
Right.
uh, let's not break down what we have just because we didn't get what we want, you know.
Right. Yeah. What I always encourage people, like, you don't have to see eye to eye. Uh, we're not we're not the Teamsters organization, right? We're the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, and brotherhood means we're family. You're my union brother, and I don't know anybody listening. I grew up with siblings, right? And my brothers and I, we beat it out of each other, wrestle around, and lots of fights, right? But you don't step to my brother. You don't. You were coming after one of my younger brothers, you had to go through me. That's just the way it was, and that's the way our union needs to get. We can have disagreements. Um, we can have disagreements about things, but bottom line is, you're my union brother. When somebody steps to me, you step up next to me, um, and we'll sort everything else out. We got to find a way to communicate and find efficient ways to communicate. But we all want the same things, even if we see different paths. We can talk about those paths. We can have those conversations, but I would encourage people, even that guy that you think, boy, man, he's kind of loud and he talks about all this stuff, and I don't really agree with it. He's probably got a family like you do, and you probably connect with that person, um, you know, a lot more than you think. You just got to give yourself an opportunity to have those conversations.
Or that
Um,
person had a family and they
right,
know there's things that they probably would have done differently
right.
or that could help someone else.
Well, there's this idea, it's kind of prevalent, especially with what we call legacy UPSers, right? Guys who come up through the system. They have an idea of the way things should be because of their experience. And it's one of the things that I love about unionism in a country like ours, because look, we're all raised on this American dream of freedom and liberty and all of that. We know that that's not always true for a lot of people, right? Um, and I understand, and I only have that understanding because I had those conversations with people that don't look like me, that come from different cultures than mine, um, and and even though they don't look like me, and maybe they have different beliefs, they come from a different culture, they still love their families. They still have the same goals as I have. And it's the one thing that I love about unionism in concept, right? If we build communities, it's the only real place in the US, despite all the talk about freedom, where there is true equality, where a person of color and a white person get paid the same amount for the same job, where a gay person has the same rights, where a trans person has the same rights, where human beings are treated equally under a contract, and then we can enforce it, and I think that's a beautiful thing that transcends contracts, right? That people can have their opinions, they can have their political views, they can have whatever, but unionism is about equality. That's what it's about. It's about raising the floor for everybody that's involved, and treating everybody equally, regardless of what God they believe in or who they love or what culture they were raised in or anything like that. It's about equality, and I think that's where unions can have an effect in society, at a greater have a greater impact on societal norms and the way that we think about um, each other within our society. above and beyond union contracts. And I think that's a pretty amazing thing that we could be a part of as a union.
Yeah, I'm excited about the future when it comes to the industry. I think, you got to think positive. I mean, I know you can go down a rabbit hole thinking that things are going to go this way, and then it doesn't even turn out that way. What does your future look like in your mind as for the trucking industry?
Well, I know there's a lot of fear mongering out there about autonomous trucks and driverless trucks. And, in 20 years, we're all going to be sitting in some cubicle driving 8 trucks at a time. I think that's a lofty goal, especially for anybody who's ever driven on an interstate. You're up north there, and then we get snow in Chicago too. I mean, we get I'm running sleeper trucks, and we go coast to coast. I'd love to see an autonomous truck out in Montana, in February in the middle of a snowstorm, when you can't see the lines on the road and you're just keeping it between the ditches,
Yeah, keep between the ditches.
There's the infrastructure in this country that's needed. I mean, we struggle to keep bridges staying up, right? Let alone an infrastructure that allows a truck to drive without a human being in it, without blocking up traffic, and without having all kinds of issues that I think a computer can't necessarily navigate. When you see pictures of these autonomous trucks, they're always, it's sun shining and perfectly painted lines on the interstate. There's no potholes, and there's very little traffic, and it's like,
the truck
great,
looks great too. The truck is in pristine.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, it's like a
Poster
but
book.
that's so far from reality. Go drive I-40 in Arizona. It's freaking washboard. I mean, you can't hardly sleep in the back. You're just bouncing all over the place.
Yeah.
The highway systems in the U.S. They're in need of repair. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of infrastructure issues that we navigate on a daily basis that I don't know how a truck's going to do that, and we know, look, we have some of this autonomous stuff in the trucks now. We have the Bendix systems, the front mitigation systems, and the lane departure systems that go off when you're clearly in the lane, or you come up to an off ramp and the zipper disappears and the thing starts squawking at you that you're out of the lane, and you're like, dude, I'm not out of the lane. The zipper just disappeared.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These internationals that they have, they're horrible. I had one earlier. I was coming through Nashville this morning, and I'm going 4 miles an hour in stop and go traffic. I have my foot depressed on the brake, and the thing engages on a brake, and boom, 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 just hopping down the interstate and I'm like, I'm going 4 miles an hour with my foot on the brake. These systems, they're terrible. They're terrible. They're not
Reliable.
well. They're not reliable. They're not anywhere close to
Needs to be
to where it needs to be functioning. And quite frankly, you have to convince the public that it's safe. And I don't know that I want my family in a vehicle running next to a big old semi truck, right, that doesn't have anybody at the wheel.
Yeah.
I think that's a hard sell to Americans. I really do. And there's going to be accidents.
Oh yeah.
The thing's going to hit the brakes hard on ice, and it's going to jackknife, and it's going to kill somebody. And are Americans going to put up with that? I have a hard time believing that they're going to. So, my thought is, sure, these companies are going to do this, but I think it's just another fear mongering strategy to depress wages. I think it's a way for them to go, well, if you won't do it, I'll just invest all this money in a computer and have this computer do it. But my bigger concern is not for us as drivers, but this automation on the inside of buildings where they want robots to load trailers. And, we ought to go into the hubs where they have the little shuttle buses in there with the oversized packages, with the big long orange trains.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all robotic. There's nobody on them. A lot of that's already happening. We're seeing UPS invest a lot of money in eliminating inside jobs, which I think is a shame, because I think there was a big focus on bringing those people up to a respectable wage in this last contract, and the fact that a lot of them are being their jobs are being eliminated, I think is something we should all be upset about, that our brothers and sisters are being negatively affected like that. But I think that's where they can have the best impact, because it's when you're talking about autonomy, that's in a controlled environment. That's not out on an open road,
right,
with the general public at risk. There's a lot more availability for that. But I think your stock prices with UPS fluctuating the way they are, is a lot of the shareholders going, wait a minute, you're spending how much money to do all this stuff for inside? Like, how long are we going to have to go before we see a return on this investment? And I don't think the figures work out quite the way that
well, it's also something that's already probably been sold as, hey, hang tight. The investment that you're making now is going to be huge later, and just massively huge. And that's
right.
That's a sales pitch.
Right.
So,
well, listen, a lot of that autonomy stuff inside doesn't eliminate everybody, right? But it eliminates some jobs inside. And that's obviously what they're going after. It's just, at their hourly rate, how many years do they have to operate that, before they make a profit on that money? It's, and that's kind of what the pushback, it seems, has been from a lot of the shareholders, is like, this doesn't make a lot of sense for you guys to dump this kind of money into automation that we're not going to see a return on for God knows how long.
well, it's going to break. It's going to break.
Right.
And
Right.
you have to buy another one.
And then what? Then you're not going to have anybody to sort the stuff because nobody's there, right?
Yeah.
That's the joys of technology. What was it a couple of weeks ago? All the pilots, you couldn't fuel anywhere. It was cash only everywhere because they had they had some software issue that affected everybody nationwide, and for like a 24-hour period,
Oh yeah.
you couldn't run a card anywhere. It's like, man, this technology's great, isn't it? Because when it breaks, everybody stops. There's nothing you can do. That airport shut down.
Yeah.
Over software. It wasn't pilots, it wasn't stewardesses. Like, it was software.
Yep. Software.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm-mm. Wow. I mean, we've touched on a lot, and I do appreciate your time. I know it's valuable, and to also, we want to make sure that the message gets out there for our listeners. We got a lot to work with as humans. Unfortunately, we don't have so much time in a day, and I know that gets overwhelming. We want to spend time with our family, and those memories are going by fast. You're only young once. And the young ones are growing up, and now they're going to be adults in the world. So how we choose to use our time is so important. So make it count. Make it something that's worthwhile, and try to do your best to advocate for yourself when it comes to being a part of a union. If you're not in a union, be a part of the greater good. That's huge for humans, I think, on a lot of bases here. But I do think you have an advantage there, being at CACH, seeing all that there, and also being a part of a union. I think you're doing a great job for humans. And I applaud you.
Well,
I thank you for all the sacrifices you made, even your family has made. So please keep up the good
well,
work.
yeah, I appreciate it, and yeah, I mean, I think unionism, like parenting, right, is always you want to leave something better than you found it, and you want people to do better um, after you're gone. You want to improve the conditions, and hopefully, that's not a thing that I do individually. That's a thing we do collectively. And
Mhm.
so getting the word out and getting people talking and developing those relationships and connecting one another, I think that's really, really, really important. Um, and sending that message out there to people that, yeah, your time is valuable. Uh, when you're employed by an employer, right, you're basically a contract for your time, and you really have to think about what you're getting out of that time, and is it worth it, and do you have a voice in that space? And that's where a union comes in. It gives you that voice, and it gives you that ability to um, elevate yourself, and in turn elevate your family. And I think that's with the union, that opportunity is provided to everybody. And I think that's I think that's a beautiful thing, man, when it works right.
Yeah, it is. So thank you for all your insights. Thank you for helping people get that eye opener as to what's going on there at Catch as well as yourself. So we thank you for joining the podcast and sharing your experiences. I want to also make sure that we get this out there to as many people as possible. So I'm trying to get to events. I'm trying to get the word out there. So encourage listeners, please subscribe. If you have any feedback, feel free. We're not afraid to any feedback. We love it. And also follow us on social media as much as you can too, so that you stay up to date with anything that we have that we're putting out. So again, this is your go-to
Absolutely. Well,
show. Yeah. Thank you so much.
appreciate you, Ray.
Yeah, we're gonna sign off and thank you so much for being on the show. And you guys take care out there, stay safe, and as always, keep going, keep trucking because the world's relying on it.
Are you a trucker looking for a safe and reliable place to park? Look no further than Truck Parking Club. With locations across the country, we've got the perfect spot waiting for you, whether it's daily or long-term parking. And right now, use promo code DELIVERED at checkout for an exclusive discount. Reserve your spot today at truckparkingclub.com and drive stress-free knowing your parking is covered.